Hola amigos, ¿qué tal? Stuart here from Spain Speaks. With the Spain News Update, we'll have a look at some of the main stories that have caught my attention in the press today, and we'll also take a look at some comments that have been left on the channel in recent times. Before I begin, a big thanks to all of the people that have supported the channel in recent times, whether it's by buying me a coffee, through the super thanks option on YouTube, longer term supporters on Patreon, or the new channel members. Thank you very much for that support. Now, straight into the news. And after putting the country on hold for the last 5 days, Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has announced that he's going to continue as head of the Spanish government. He's not going anywhere, and he's back from his short hiatus stronger than ever. Pedro Sanchez has announced this Monday in an institutional declaration that he is staying on as president of the government after a 5-day period of reflection on his continuity in the post as a result of the campaign of harassment against his wife, Begoña Gómez, which he'd announced last Wednesday. This smear campaign will not stop. We can deal with it, he said, referring to himself and his wife. The important thing is that we want to thank the expressions of solidarity received from all sides. Thanks to this mobilization, I have decided to remain at the head of the presidency. Over the weekend, he has received messages of support both at his party's federal committee and from militants in the streets and at electoral events in Catalonia. So there we go, the big news story of the day. Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez announcing that he is going to continue as head of the Spanish government, and this story is going to dominate the press for the next couple of days, both here in Spain and internationally. Mr. Sanchez has said that it was the support of the Spanish people that influenced in part his decision to continue, and he wants the social majority, whatever that is, to continue to stand up to the constant attacks from the right and far right side of politics in this country. And in his short speech today, not only did he mention that he was going to continue, but he also managed to squeeze in women's rights issues and also freedom of speech issues in this country. And I'm going to be honest, I don't think I can remember a more self-centered display from a prime minister, not only here in Spain, but in any country for that matter, in my time on this planet. Because basically the last 5 days were all about one thing: Pedro Sanchez. It was all about him. Not worried about some of the other issues in the country, some of the bigger issues in the country when he put the country on hold. It was all about him. It was all about Pedro, and here we are today as if nothing has changed. Now moving on from Pedro Sanchez to another narcissist, Luis Rubias. Remember him? And it is that Luis Rubias has appeared before the judge in the Brody case. The former president of the Royal Spanish Football Federation, Luis Rubias, is currently in the Majadahonda courts to testify as a defendant in the Brody operation. The former RFEF president arrived after 9:30 a.m., calm and smiling, at the Court of First Instance and Preliminary Investigations No. 4 in Majadahonda. He was summoned there at 10 a.m. to be questioned about alleged irregularities in contracts linked to the RFEF during his time as president. Among the contracts under investigation is the one that assigned the works of the Stadium La Cartuja in Seville to the company Gru Consa, or the one that moved the Super Cup to Saudi Arabia. So there we go, Luis Rubias back in court trying to explain to a judge some of those alleged irregularities during his time as head of the Spanish Football Federation. And he arrived at the court calm and smiling, typical narcissistic behaviour. And the final piece of news we'll look at today related to Spain's tourism industry and some of the problems that it is facing, especially after the protests down there in the Canary Islands last week. And an interesting article, How to Make a Living from Tourism Without Dying from It. What is happening in the Canary Islands is a red alert for the rest of the country. The revolt called by citizens' platforms under the slogan "The Canary Islands Have a Limit" to denounce uncontrolled tourism and demand urgent measures marks a turning point for an industry that has had one of its most succulent attractions in the archipelago for more than a century. All the international press picked up on the success of the event in the islands and also its message. It is important to remember that we, the tourists, are stakeholders stakeholders in the future of these islands, wrote British journalist Greg Dickinson in The Telegraph. If we enjoy visiting the Canaries, it's in our interest to listen and be part of the solution rather than part of the problem. And the big problem here is that it is difficult to draw the line between fortune and drama, a dilemma that has been reproduced in all of the tourist areas of Spain in recent times. Can the Canaries, and by extension the whole country, give up the spoils of tourism? Clearly not. Can the Canaries, and the same goes for the rest of Spain, perpetuate the current business model? It also seems complicated. So there we go, the tourism industry here in Spain still in the spotlight, and a warning that what is happening down there in the Canary Islands as far as those protests are concerned is a red alert for the rest of the country. Uncontrolled tourism is an issue and people are demanding urgent measures. Now let's have a look at some comments that have been left on videos recently. One here from Ian. The question is, why only now Mr. Sanchez is being bullied? Is it because of his stance against the Israeli genocide? Not sure, but I feel it is the case. The Scottish PM is facing the same, and likely for the same reason. Yeah, Ian, thanks for the comment, but I don't think it's only now that Mr. Sanchez is being bullied by people on the right side of politics here in Spain. It's been happening for a while. In fact, you could probably go back to 2018 to see when this bullying started. Has it got worse in recent times? Yes, obviously because of some of the things that Mr. Sanchez has done over the last 3 or 4 years, especially when it comes to Catalonia and Mr. Puigdemont. But I don't think it has anything to do with Mr. Sanchez's recent stand on the Palestinian state and Israeli genocide. I think it has more to do with internal politics and the fact that Mr. Sanchez, according to some, can't lie straight in bed. But I'd love to hear the community's opinion on this matter, so please in the comment section below let me know why you think Mr. Sanchez is being bullied. One here from Recipe Review played right into Sanchez's narcissistic hands, lauded like a god. This is exactly what he wanted. Distraction. Yeah, Recipe Review, thanks for the comment, and I've only got one word in reply to this comment. Absolutely. One here from Jose Antonio. Mass tourism leads to housing problems for locals. What are those millions of euros from the tourist tax spent on? Not on social housing. A little bit of socialism doesn't hurt when the private sector is the problem. The money is there to be allocated to who knows. Yeah, Jose Antonio, thanks for the comment and good question. Where is the money from this tourist tax in the Balearic Islands and Catalonia being spent? Because as Jose Antonio points out, it's not being spent on social housing. It should be being spent on something like that, getting locals that need housing into decent housing with those funds in places like Ibiza and other parts of the Balearic Islands, and also in Catalonia, where people are complaining that they can't afford housing anymore. But it's not, and the question is, why isn't it? One here from Penrose. Aren't tourists paying taxes from the second they book their holidays? Yeah, Penrose, thanks for the comment, and yes, people are paying taxes as soon as they book their holidays, and even more if they book their holidays in places like Catalonia or the Balearic Islands that have an added tourist tax on top. As soon as you book your holiday and pay for it, you are paying VAT, or IVA as it is called here in Spain, and as soon as you step foot in the country and start buying things, you are again paying that VAT, a value-added tax that ends up in government coffers. But governments want more than that tax, and that's why there's talk of other parts of Spain also applying a tourist tax. Because let's be honest, it's just so easy to do. One here from Dweemy. Tourist tax? No, I won't go where there's an extra cost unless I really have to. €5 per day is not cheap if you're somewhere for 14 days. As for national service, that'll be expensive for a country. They'll have to house, feed and clothe the servicemen, women, as well as provide trained trainers, weapons, etc, etc. Yeah, Dweemy, thanks for the comment, and you're right, €5 a day is not cheap for a tourist tax, especially if you're spending a couple of weeks in a place that has this type of tax. And if it's a tourist tax of €5 per person per day and you are a family of 5, then it can be a fair bit of money. And when it comes to military service here in Spain, you're right, it would also be expensive because the government has spent the last 25 years dismantling the previous system. A lot of the buildings that were used to house soldiers when Spain last past had compulsory military service have been sold off by the government and turned into private housing estates. And to rebuild this type of infrastructure, I imagine, would be expensive. One here from Dossier Spain. Why haven't they built social housing only for locals with all of the autonomo fees and taxes gathered? Yeah, Dossier, thanks for the comment and good question, but unfortunately I don't know the answer to it. I know there is a government plan to build more social housing over the next few years, but I don't know why it hasn't been done before. But if anybody does know the answer, please let me know in the comment section below. And the final comment here from Ian, The Guardian, ? Hardly an impartial source of opinion when it comes to criticism of leftists. Yeah, Ian, thanks for the comment, and obviously not a fan of the Guardian newspaper is Ian, saying that it is not an impartial source of opinion when it comes to criticism of people on the left side of politics. But, and as I have said on many occasions over the last few years since I have been doing this type of video, I try to get news from every political angle. I show stories from the left-wing press, I show stories from the right-wing press, I show stories from the left of left-wing press, and I also show stories from the right of right-wing press. Because the idea here is to have a balance, get different points of view, and let people come to their own conclusions. Do I sometimes show political bias? Of course, I'm human, but what I'm not going to do is only force one point of view down people's throats. So I'll continue to show news from different press outlets with different points of view, if that's okay with you guys. On that note, I'm going to wrap the video up. Questions and comments, please leave them in the section below. If you have anything to add to the conversation today, please, the comment section is the place for you. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs down if you didn't. I'll see you in the next one. Hasta luego.